It is currently 5:30, Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. We're opening up our session of the Historic Town of Eatonville Community Redevelopment Agency meeting. It's called to order. Mrs. King, do you have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Roll call.
Director Randolph?
Here.
Director Henderson?
Here.
Director Washington? Chair?
Here.
Vice Chair Daniels?
Present.
Director Daniels?
Here.
And Director Critney?
Here.
Thank you. Please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we go forward, there are some citizen participations. I know we did have this discussion before, so if everyone is okay, we place it in the same spot as we would if it was in the 7:30 meeting. So if everyone's okay with that, Mrs. King did state there are some citizen participation forms that were completed.
Okay, we have our first one, which is Michelle Fort.
Good evening, everyone. I have a question because I have a comment for each agenda item. So should I say it before the agenda item, because this is not a comment for just general?
So we stick to the same 3 minutes, so that's your discussion period.
For all of the agenda? Okay. All right, well, you got to give me a minute. Let me get my notes together because I wasn't prepared for that. So, all right, so number 4, the Ring Camera Program. I think that it's awesome that this board is looking to help seniors. However, I think it poses a risk. Who is going to be responsible for the installation? Who is going to be responsible for the individual setting up the app for the seniors? Because we're going on their property. Does the town insurance cover that? So before we do anything of this nature, we need to really look at the risk, because it is a risk. And are we gonna pay for an electrician to come out to do the installation? What if the wiring of their house is out of date and out of code? Is that going to be the residents to pay for? Because ultimately it comes back to the residents. So I think another program would be beneficial, but that one I do not agree with. Okay, so outside counsel for the special investigation, I don't agree with that. The reason why I don't agree with that is for this simple point. At the September 26, 2019 meeting, Attorney Jackson reviewed the agreement, agreed to the terms, and said that it was no problems with that contract. So if he said there was no problems with it, but now we're going to do an investigation. Now at the March 8th, 2022, Director Marlon Daniels stated he wanted to terminate. Well, if we're going to terminate someone and not look at the contract, that you can't change the contract. You know, if you go into the service today, you sign that contract. You can't say 2 years later, I want to add a clause. There was a contract. My other problem with that is we're spending possibly $50,000 and up when individuals on this board didn't want to pay the salary for Mr. Singh. You're going to spend taxpayers $50,000. That's a lot of money. And I don't think the citizens will be in agreement with that. On number 6, so that really needs to be looked at. And also, Mr. Jackson, I want to know, what is the procurement policy? Because if you are going to provide the board with 4 individuals that you have found, shouldn't the RFP go out for that? Why are we selecting individuals that's not going in accordance with our procurement policy? And if there was such a problem with this whole contract and agreement, I feel like this, Attorney Jackson, you reviewed it, you approved it. Everybody has made a bad choice. Everyone has went to a restaurant, you didn't like the food, you chalk it up as an experience and you move on. You agreed to it in 2019, it was okay then, you can't change it now in 2022 and expect the residents to pay for that. That's unacceptable. Number 6, I agree with, because they did do the work, they should be reimbursed. Number 7, we need to hold up before we review the bylaws if we're not even abiding by the bylaws now. Let's start with looking at each director, look at the bylaws, look at the procedures, also look at the procurement policy before we're making any decisions. Attorney Mosley warned the council at that March 8th CRA meeting stating, don't do it. You agreed to a contract. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, I want to do a petition that the members, the citizens should be heard on each topic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
We have David.
May I hand out some documents?
I'll hand them out.
Chair, quick question before we proceed to the next person. Is the protocol that if I wanted to address the sports comments right now? No. Or should I wait for the end?
You can have your remarks, and you can do your remarks. That's when it's usually done.
Just another discussion. I mean, we got more discussion. I mean,
I'll give you a copy. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is David Barani. I own 403, 426, and 525 on Kennedy. I'm here to ask the board to release a lien on my property that was put on about 3.5 years ago. Typically, grants use a restrict. I'm not an attorney, but this contract was basically set up as a deferred payment loan lien instead of a restrictive covenant, which is very often used on grants. And I had some issues with the entire grant, including not getting paid the full amount. The reason of that was I completed the project within the timeline. I proceeded with professionalism, and I purposely did not place 2 pieces of plastic into the street sign because I didn't have a name for the business. No one has ever notified me that.
That was an accident. That was in 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm
That was an
sorry.
accident.
I'm sorry, so no one ever notified me in writing. No one gave me a chance to cure this default. At the same time, the board immediately voted on closing the case, so therefore I did not receive 10% of the grant, which was $3,000. That's one of my observations. I've never been notified about the meeting. When the voting happened, I didn't get a chance to cure that. And then this 5-year lien, I don't believe it serves any purpose because any kind of action would trigger the clause that's on it, and I would violate it, including helping young ladies by offering affordable chair rentals on hairstyling. So I could have had the operation up and running. I have the space up and ready, yet I can't even lease it out because that would trigger the violation. So I'm here to ask the board to consider releasing the lien on my property, and that's pretty much what I had for today.
Thank you.
I could have leased it to a pharmacy. You know, it would have been very highly beneficial for the town. And, yeah, so it says on the contract that any kind of change regarding this lien is at the total discretion of the board, so I'm here to ask the board to consider releasing the lien.
All right, thank you.
And that was the last one.
That's awesome. Oh. The next item on the agenda, approval of minutes. And this would be the consent agenda. So the approval of minutes for December 6, 2022, as well as approval of minutes for November 15, 2022. Is there a motion? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The minutes for November 6th, December 6th and November 15th have been approved. Next is board decisions, approval of CRA meeting 2023 calendar. Motion for approval.
I move.
Move.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Randolph, second by Director Washington. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Chair, can we do that on all voting matters, just to give the option of nay, you didn't do it on the first last one, just point of order.
Board discussion, number 4, the Ring camera. Thank you, Ms. Ford. However, that was an idea for me, and the idea that it was mainly because we can keep putting police on the streets, or we can look at doing something, trying to be more innovative, and it really is to spark discussion. What else can we do? Rings are very popular right now, but definitely more thought, more ideas could be out there, and we'll put more ideas into it, and as well as, is it priority right now? And we'll hear about that later. So that was why it was on the agenda, to increase safety, especially for the seniors, and also to increase safety without increasing the budget too much. But there are other things to consider, some of the things that you discussed. Does anyone have any more discussions about that?
Sure, I have a question.
Yes.
When we do decide, or should we decide to move forward with this idea or any alternative idea, would this be an option for them to sign up for, or is this something that we're mandating so that residents that are eligible know maybe neighbor A is okay with it, maybe neighbor B says no thank you. So will those options be made known, what they can select, and if they decide to participate? In addition to that, I know that the primary focus as far as the discussion is concerned is the seniors, but if there are other residents that are interested, would that be made available to them as well? Or would it be like a phase kind of thing that we would look at?
I mean, the program no program has been written for it, so whatever the board decides, that's part of what will be a part of the program. So again, if it's this program or something else, then it definitely would not be mandatory. And we usually have sign-ups for it, to a certain amount. I saw Director Daniels just, all right, Director Daniels.
So my question was, along with Director Critton, what were we talking about the budget?
Well, for now, it really was, when you look at the price of this particular item, $100 and something. I mean, then we kind of consider how many people we want to service. Then we look at getting the cost to get the wiring and installation in. So in regards to the budgets, in the past, we haven't done much over 30,000 or 10,000, but that hasn't, right now it's just the idea. What is out there that we could look at to increase safety?
So as Ms. Ford said earlier, a project of this nature probably need to be implemented by an outside contractor to ensure that it's done the right way. Also, have we looked into grant programs with Ring, because I'm pretty sure there's grant processes out there or we could have rent. I'm cool with it, but I think it should not just be limited to seniors. It's more than just seniors, and then you gotta look at how many seniors have the capability of having it on their phone and all those kind of different things and of that nature, stuff like that. Capability of the phones to do it. So I just think, like going forward, we really should have more detail on it, so we could really, dissect. I know you put it out there initially, but I would definitely want to know what the funding source is and all those kind of different things, where it's coming from.
Right, and the other thing I haven't considered economies of scale. Usually if you're gonna do it in bulk, then the price per unit will be less, so
Right.
that will also be considered.
But the same question was Ford said too, if you start getting into electrical and all that, if they go there and pop open, somebody have an electrical issue, they're gonna be almost obligated to fix that issue or having to drill into the house and all that. So we really need to get with legal and everybody to make sure that we're covered in all aspects of it to ensure, because you drill into somebody's structure, they, the stucco not good and they start cracking the stucco. Are we liable? So we need to have liable release forms and all those things.
Most definitely. Director Randall.
I think most of the questions that I was going to ask have already been said. I only had a concern just for a couple of things. Besides the seniors, well, let me just address the seniors. Have we determined exactly how many seniors we're talking about for this type of service? Has there been a study done as to the need for this type of service for the seniors?
Well, right now, you're doing just what I wanted it to do. Start the conversation. Because if you state that you're not even interested in it, it's no need to go any further. But if you state that you are, and it's feasible right now, then those questions we can seek answers for. In regards to who it's for, obviously, if we say it's for everyone, then we're dealing with costs. But and again, there might be other options out there. This was something that I thought about that could be implemented, and just given just some of the things that happened in the neighborhood, that a ring would have captured, some of that activity. So, and that's why I brought it to
Okay, I'd like to finish. Just one thing, thank you. Also, as far as the seniors are concerned, there are other individuals that have disabilities that would also should be able to fit into that category. People that have mental challenges. There are a lot of people that would need this type of service. I would say, if we were looking at something like this on a long-term or short-term basis. So we have to determine exactly the cost the dollars is going to determine exactly whether or not this is something that we can afford. And then what line item would this come out of on behalf of the town?
CRA.
the CRA. Yes.
CRA.
So it'll be part of the community policing efforts. Yes. Oh, wait, are you finished?
No, I mean line item as far as what category on the line item.
It'd be a project. I mean, that's what we need to be doing for CRA, doing projects.
Again, we can get all that information. Right now, it sparks the conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I was agreeing with the major parties, just making sure we include everyone in. And has anyone, and I'm open, do they have reliable Wi-Fi service? I know the company that I have now, it's not good. And I don't know if anyone else in the community is experiencing that, but my service isn't the strongest. So when that person passed by, I can be looking at them pass by, and then my ring will go off maybe 10 minutes later because of the Wi-Fi. So I didn't know if we are petitioning those companies that come in, like, hey, can we make sure that we have a strong signal? Because if we don't have a strong signal, we put these up, it does no good. So I was just comparing with everyone else.
I have a question. Do anybody have a ringer at their house now? Okay, you know how they operate. They're going to be pick up. Anytime somebody walk up, drive by, they're going to pick up, and it's going to record. So when you Wi-Fi connect on, you'll be all right. But the main thing is that we need these cameras on every corner of a person that owns a house, the senior, whoever it is, because this is this will help our city to protect our citizens. When crime go on, we can follow, that car, that person, my cousin got murdered in a pocket. That's how they caught the murder. The ring camera at somebody's house started a car that he got into, and they found that car and found the person. So that helps. It really does help. So it doesn't matter who gets it, senior or a person like corner lot, off to that person to come to Eddie County Park, in Lake Lovely, in and out of Lake Lovely State, in and out of Calhoun Hall, those main streets. We need those cameras there so they can catch those kind of things if something go on, and the police will go to your house and say, hey, you got a ring camera? Can we look at it? This car came through here. So it definitely helps, regardless of whether it's a senior or a young person, whoever it is. So we need to make a program for it, like we did with, supposed to do with the lockbox for the seniors that never kicked off. So let's look at this as a positive and say, whoever come up and we say, just we'll look at the houses that sits on the corner first, not up in the cul-de-sac. Because you go in the cul-de-sac, you got to come out. So let's look at it that way, so we can put these cameras in those kind of areas so that our police can be a team with homeowners. So, I mean, that's the way we can look at this program as we get it kicked off.
Chair, quick question. What municipalities have you compared to that's already doing this program?
I actually didn't. I mean, my thoughts were,
No, I'm asking.
I didn't, because my thoughts mainly was for what we could do in our town to enhance safety without keep picking up the amount that we pay for police protection.
I have a question. What about our law enforcement department to provide us, have there been any calls to any residents, seniors in the last so many years to determine whether or not this type of services is really needed?
We can get that information. You know, again, it was brought to you as to spark the conversation. If whether it's ring, whether it's something else more feasible, whether it's 50-50, they do the installation, we provide the ring, however. But it is a way for us to be more innovative in looking at safety in the community. So, and based on everything that you said here, we take it back, we look at it again, you know, and if it's feasible, then
I did
we continue the conversation.
look on the web the other day, and there are a couple cities around, and they, you know, neighboring towns like our towns that do have this, but that may be based upon the need of the crime.
Mm-hmm.
Our crime statistics here in Eatonville has been on the decline. So I was wondering whether or not how would all that work as far as the crime rate in needed areas.
There are certain activities that is kicking up. So, yes.
And add another question, like cameras on businesses. We need a partnership with businesses that sits on the corner too with their cameras. You know, not just ring cameras, but the cameras that have with their business. We need to incorporate that with businesses. You know, and it will help because, like I said, it's crime, shootings and stuff like that. When a car flees, that camera can pick that car up, and they'll know what they're looking at, and you know, go to that business and say, you have a camera, can we look at it? Boom. I mean, it works out. I mean, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea at all.
Chair, I'd like to piggyback off the Director of Washington, and just to play devil's advocate, because I would like it to be noted that I do like the discussion being had. However, in the spirit of the devil's advocate, can we make sure that if this is something that we're going to participate in or spread throughout our community, that we're considerate of the neighbors? So while it does pose some pros, it could potentially pose some cons, invasion of privacy, wanting to know if neighbors will be mandated to turn over. I mean, of course, it is your property. So, you know, just while we're thinking about it, while we're discussing it, let's make sure that we're considerate to, you know, my neighbor might have one, but maybe I'm on my patio doing something, etc. I don't want to be bothered for whatever reason because I have that expectation of privacy. Just making sure that when we do decide to move forward, that we're as sensitive as possible on both sides, on the pros and the cons side.
Right. there's no other discussion, we'll move on. Next item is to determine the outside counsel for the special investigation. I don't know whose item this is.
This item was put on the agenda at your request from the last meeting.
But at the last meeting, the question was more about, I put this item on the agenda.
No, this was a follow-up from the last meeting.
Right.
That you all decided
Oh,
with the
not me.
consensus. No, yeah,
Okay,
the
okay.
council, I mean the board.
Okay.
This, yes.
Did we ever determine the cost?
No, sir, we have not at this time, but the way to control that is to set a budget and then deal with an attorney based on the budget that you have and let them know what the budget is. I do want to report that I did get a call from Attorney Wade Bose, who indicated to me that he does not have any availability at this time to do any type of investigation, but he did recommend another attorney, Kurt Arterman, which I will submit to this board. And as I indicated before, I will just send these to you. You all do the due diligence because I don't want to have a hand or part in selecting who that is, so that there's hands-off dealings with that. So.
You know how soon you'll be able to get his information?
Yes, ma'am, I have it here.
Did you have
Yes,
it
ma'am.
here?
So what I can do is I can, as I did with the other information, I can provide that information to Ms. King in order to get to the board. Yes, sir.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Since this board highly respects you and Attorney Shepherd,
Yes, sir.
if you turn it over to him and allow him to choose one, is that, or should that lie on us? Because it's a matter, it seems like a trust.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I trust you and I trust your opinion. I mean, we've dealt with each other for years. To ease this board's mind, because I was thinking, go to legal cities, let him choose someone, just get the investigation done, because what's wrong is wrong, and what's going to come out is going to come out, whether you pick somebody or not. You know, so if you turn it over, I don't know if this board would like to turn it over to Attorney Shepherd and just let him choose one of the three and let's move forward, because it seems as though this is just getting time and just push back. I would want this thing to happen as soon as possible in a sense.
But
Okay.
in the last meeting, we talked about the procurement process and the RFQ. That's what I thought was going to be on the agenda, was putting out an RFQ versus handpicking in the manner that we're doing. So that's what, and now what was discussed on my end for the last meeting. And I mean, that's the procurement process.
And Madam Chair, if I can just tag onto that and also answer Vice Chair's question. I believe, Attorney Shepherd as well as myself indicated that if we could be hands-off on the process, that would probably be both of our preferences. I think that you just came up with an excellent alternative, is to allow the Florida League of Cities to help to make that determination. I think that would be an outstanding idea. I do want to, if I could, because there was a statement that was made regarding the purpose for the outside counsel, and if I reviewed the contract and said that the contract was fine. If I'm assuming that this is the same contract, that contract was reviewed by me and I never signed that contract because I disagreed with the contract for legal sufficiency. And so I did not sign up on that contract. If this is the same contract that was referenced during the public comment.
All right, so the next, is there another question?
Well, there's no question. It's the RFP. We've already agreed that we need to choose counsel, and the procurement process is what it says it is. Then RFP and RFQ should just go ahead and be put out, or we go to Florida Legal Cities. I mean, that's simple. What it should be.
Yeah, going to Florida League of, I mean, it should be an RFQ. I mean, it doesn't talk about going to Florida League of Cities.
I think Attorney Shepherd also, and he and I, we discussed this in terms of probably the best way to do it is through an RFP as opposed to RFQ, because RFQ would just be someone saying, yeah, they can do it, and they wouldn't give me any additional information from that. He and I discussed it, and I agree that an RFP would be the best way to procure the services in this regard.
So when will that RFP go out?
We'll put it on the next agenda. Well, the RFP can go out. We don't need to vote on that, do we?
No, ma'am, you don't have to vote on it because it's been determined by this. But the only thing that this board will want to do, Madam Chair, is to determine a budget of what you do not want to go outside of with regards to an investigation and make sure that that is clear. And I believe you have a question from Mrs. Singh.
Mayor, if I can interject.
Yes.
Regarding the RFP, not an RFQ. Just so I agree with the attorney conversation in the last meeting. There are certain requirements that need to be included in the RFP. That
Thank
You don't have an extra microphone.
Thank you. It's important that this board provides staff some of the elements of the RFP. This is not just a budget element, it's the scope of work. So that needs to be addressed because staff will need direction on how to craft that RFP. In terms of the scope of work, obviously there'll be budget limitations. That needs to be determined. What's your comfort zone of what you want to spend? And determining it on the level of funding will determine how deep they go. So this isn't something you can just guess, and so it requires some thought because you don't want to waste your time, funding, an attorney's time. You want to get a good product out of this. So it requires some careful consideration of what the elements of that RFP needs to have in it.
you. Thank you.
Do we have both your do we have a contract? This contract? What we dealing with? We ever had a contract?
You mean for the
That,
former executive director?
yeah, for the, do we have that
We
contract?
received it in the past.
Huh?
I think it was in
Was
the
the
last
last
packet.
Last package?
So at this point, it's still a discussion item. It's not ready for an RFP.
So we need to, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So we need to get with the attorney, set up a special meeting, emergency meeting or a special meeting, and then discuss the criteria, what we put into the RFP before we send it out.
What I can do is I'll, go ahead, Mr. Singh.
I'm sorry, I'll just say it.
Let me just put this over here. You can just speak loud, we can get.
Yeah, okay, I'll speak loud. My recommendation would be for the attorney to draft an RFP for your review, and you could send it out ahead of time. We can work on a budget. You all decide what that is. And I think you ought to give us a number, because I think it would be unfair for you all to say, here's a number. You understand kind of the scope of this work and what the hourly rate would be. So if you could draft the RFP, provide it to this board, and then you all review and edit it.
And then we can add on to the.
Absolutely.
Subtract from dollar and then make process already.
And that's what I was going to say. So.
All right, so move on to the next item, lien release request for property 213 West Kennedy Boulevard. Again, these are items that were
Randolph.
requested in the last meeting on this one. So if we don't have
Yeah.
anyone,
That is Randolph.
okay, all right.
Yeah, which one is that? 213 West Kennedy. Yes, Mrs. Wilders, the property owner, as a state, I'm quite sure you all have read the information. And she's requesting the same thing as our previous resident, business owner, have requested a lien release, of $30,000 that she alleged that was placed on her building. And she provided all the information and the facts concerning this particular problem that she's been dealing with. And apparently, she had filled out an application for improvements to her building as a business owner. And in the midst of all of this, things didn't work out. She contends that she did not get the $30,000 that she had applied for. But however, there was continuous work that was subcontractors, unlicensed, that were hired to do work on her building. And at her own cost, she had to spend her own money to get these things straightened out. So there's a lot of fault and a lot of deficiencies that happened in this particular situation here. So she's requesting a refund. And it does says, again, dealing with the former executive director of the CRA had appointed himself as the executor of the funds. And Mrs. Wilder's contended that when the property improvements began, it was inadequate due to unlicensed contractors and for lack of receiving funds awarded. Therefore, she's requesting a refund for her out-of-pocket personal expenses for the improvements on her building, which is located at 213 West Kennedy Boulevard, which is really the Chamber of Commerce building here on Kennedy Boulevard. And she also says that a notice of a deferred payment loan lien in the amount of $30,000 for the performance program to improve the building structure. The lien states which remain in effect for 5 years from the last disbursement date of the loan proceedings for the CRA to Mrs. Wilder. So that's the issue that we're dealing with. She has provided the CRA application process that she thoroughly completed. Also, there was a building proposed improvements that list costs, itemized costs. She provided that information. And also other information that she provided, is the record of the property records of the property, a list of all of these things. So this is what we are contending with as far as a discussion, to determine proper procedures and whether or not she should be entitled to a refund based upon the evidence that she has presented.
Director Marlon.
I've talked to Ms. Wilder as well as talked to Mrs. Barnes before in reference to these liens. Simple question, and I haven't got a copy of it yet, and I'll probably refer to Ms. Barnes. Does anyone have a copy of the grant requirements and procedures?
The what now?
The grant requirements and procedures of receiving the grant. These 2 grants that was used for those 2 different properties. What was the requirements and what were the procedures? Does anyone have a copy of it?
It should be in the file. I mean, yes, right.
I think it is in that file.
This should be in the file. They had an application process, and they knew if the town give you money, you know you have to give me a lien and put on something.
No, I just want to stick with that right quick.
Yeah,
And then how many applications were put in? Do we know that?
You just have them accept it. Them 2 to accept it. That's all we would deal with.
No.
Having to put in.
No.
It's not called.
Director, I'm talking.
You asked a question.
No, I'm talking to the director.
Go ahead.
I'm talking to the chair. So I'm asking, and there's a reason I'm asking these questions is to make sure that the procedures were followed. So that's why I want to know how many applicants, and then what are the grant requirements and the procedures that were taken. Any grant process, and Mr. Singh, I don't know if you want to chime in, but when you're giving out money and stuff like that, there is a way that you have to follow to keep discrimination from happening. So that's why I'm asking these particular questions.
Director Daniels, you are correct. Obviously, when you're dealing with, this isn't just CRA funds, this is taxpayer funds. And it's held to a higher standard than you would otherwise have with other funds. I can't tell you for sure the answer to your questions. I review this file. I do have a lot of questions on it. You know, things like the owner. Obviously, I saw the grant application. I saw the cost breakdowns. I saw receipts. But all the information on the grant application was to the Chambers of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce does not own the building. this is a private residence or a private property owner. So there are questions that I don't have information on. The CRA documentation there's missing information for me to draw a conclusion to say whether this lien should be released. The receipts, I can't tell you if, yes, they could have purchased those items, but were those items that were purchased used on this property? So I think it's incomplete to make a determination until we have all the evidence that provides some level of comfort.
Thank you. Are you finished? I just, it states that there were no licenses. My question is, you pull permits for the license. So, and the other thing is the $30,000 out of pocket, the original scope of work versus the end result was more than the original scope of work. The original scope of work was on the main part of the building, but what we see now is also the extension. So at least we need an itemization, breakdown of all the costs of this $30,000 to make certain that the amount that was given for the scope of work for the monies given through the CRA are the same as what's involved in this $30,000. And I totally disagree that monies were not received for this, only because in trying to help resolve it, we did sit down and I saw the items with her. So, I mean, I just think, and I agree, there's a lot more questions that need to be answered, and it's not here. Even to the email that's in here, that's not complete. Yes, Vice Chair.
Executive Director, what's your opinion? Have you had a chance to review this? Let us know what's going on, what's your opinion on this?
I agree with Mr. Singh. There are a lot of things that are missing. There are a lot of files that are incomplete. So, you know, as I sent information to Attorney Jackson, so everything that you have on these particular properties is everything that the CRA has. So if there's anything missing, it's because it is not an item have it.
So the request that board member Marlon Day, you would be able to comply with getting the information on the grant requirements.
No,
And
I do not have that.
you do not have it.
I do not.
Is that a red flag to anybody? Is it just me?
What's that?
That applications are not there so we can review?
You said application versus.
Application, that's
Applications or requirements for the
program?
for the loan?
For the loan program?
I do not have that.
Oh,
It's gonna be minutes at least.
you should have application, you should have a program there.
I'm sorry, the application is there. The cost breakdown is there. What's not there is what you asked. What was the process? You know, how many applications received for this program? You know, who determined this was the applicant that should receive the amount? In the file, I saw 20,000, I saw 30,000. I'm not sure which one was approved. So there, and again, to be fair to the applicant, I think this is important. Just because of all of this missing pieces and parts to this, we also have to think of the applicants. We need to be fair to applicants. If we offer a program and we internally are not managing it well, it's unfair to them. So we have an obligation to the applicant as well, whether the answer is yes or no, why. But again, the information isn't there to really address all of that.
Well, my question is, how can we put a lien on something that's a grant, or we're providing a service? You know, if you put a lien on it, I get to get money back from you or something.
Was the money exchanged?
I have a very important
Wait, hold on.
question.
Director, Daniels, then Director.
Okay.
So I'll make this statement. Upon the previous executive director and upon a records request, I know this is incomplete because I have documents that I requested that's at my house that has all of that information in it. And I will also state that the contractor that was doing the work during that time was not even an active business up on Sundays. I research, I read. So they weren't even active. So that threw a red flag to me automatically when Ms. Wilder first brought it to me. So, and now we're saying that records are missing. That's a major sunshine right there, that we have records missing from a government facility. And I'm very disturbed by that those records were not a part of this whole document. And I'll provide a copy to the CRA that for the information I have.
Director Brenda.
Thank you very much. I'd like to see those documents. My question is, did we ever discover or find in the records from the bank a check or some monetary amount that was given to Mrs. Wilder for $30,000 on the bank statements?
No. I have not researched that. I haven't been given the director to research that. Do we know around the time that was supposed to be done? I can go back and check that.
Well, you know, reports were that she contends that she did not receive the money, and then I heard others say that she did receive the money. So I was just trying to determine, based upon the bank statements, whether or not a disbursement of $30,000 was issued to the business owner.
And I'm asking of the payments for the,
It
Oh,
goes
for
in
the-
draws. You don't get one lump sum $30,000. You get it in draws. That's how the program works. It draws. So it should show.
It should show something if something went to her.
okay, Attorney Jackson, then Director Henderson.
You go with that.
Director Henderson.
My question is, where, you say you see receipts, who are the receipts from? Are they from us paying a contractor or paying out to someone?
These were receipts in the file that Ms. Wilder provided to the CRA.
So where do we go from here?
I was going to ask Attorney Jackson what his comments were going to be.
Yeah, a couple of things that I noticed about this, and I believe it has been mentioned, is that this was issued as a grant, and this was issued as a grant for $20,000, but there's a lien for $30,000. So there's a discrepancy first and foremost in the amount. The second thing is that because this is a grant, I'm not certain how this was then converted to a loan. And if this is a loan, then there has to be some type of loan documentation with terms as to why this became a loan and is no longer a grant, because grants are different from loans. And so if this deferred payment loan lien is, in my opinion, invalid, because this is based upon a grant that was received by this individual, and then you have to figure out what the amount of that grant was. But this is clearly for a loan when this person did not take out a loan, they took out a grant. So in addition to the questions that were brought forth by everyone else, there's some issues with regards to the conversion of a grant to a loan without there being any documentation as to how that happened.
Director Critton.
I guess I'm trying to figure out, I know in this particular situation, it's listed that the former executive director appointed himself as the executor of the funds, and I guess this goes to procedure, which we are looking into, but do we know if this was the case with Mr. Garani as well? I mean, is
I think that's wording. And I'm just saying, I
Okay.
think that's wording.
okay. I figured it was answered under procedure, but I think that might be a discrepancy as well between where that trail of funds, at least, trying to figure out where what went and to who and when.
I mean, it just seems though at this point, we just need to gather all of the information. Yes.
Can we ask Mr. Ryan, did he receive a lump sum check or?
Okay, so
Would you go to the microphone?
I started and finished the project in time as promised, so each and every, the money was released in 3 different increments.
So you actually got the money?
I got 27 out of 30.
Hold on for a second, I'm gonna ask a question away.
Sure.
You received money that was sent to your company to do the work?
To my contractor, but all the money I received was in the form of a check issued by the town.
Right.
So that should be easy to track.
To your contractor, but the difference is with this other one, it was going through, the one receipts I have was going through Home Depot and all those other different kind of places that wasn't going to a contractor.
Well, it was not supposed to be handled anyone other than the contractor. It's a grant, so it was proposed, it got approved. There were certain stipulations on what needed to be completed. There were different line items, and then there were inspections on each and every phase. And then it was contributed in 3 different increments. I just don't remember. Actually, the contract I gave to you all, it says black and white, the percentage of the money releases. It includes the initial, the second, and the last 10%, which in my case was never released.
So was it a deferred payment loan lien that you had? Or
No,
was it
see,
a grant?
my concern, and I mentioned I'm not an attorney, but I've done enough dealings in my life knowing that in my case is, which should be the same as theirs, it has not been the correct instrument. Because the correct kind of instrument that was supposed to have been used would have been a restrictive covenant, which is very often used on grants.
So
Which serves the same purpose, but it is the correct instrument. Like this instrument has never been used.
Okay, one last question. Do you have a copy of the requirements of the
I
grant and all
have
that?
copies of everything.
Can you provide that to
Yes,
me
sir.
or to the clerk and then she can provide it to me?
I need a little bit of time to gather it together, but I have everything, yes.
But he met the requirements to get the funds.
So how do you know what the requirements were?
He met the requirements.
Because it was our, well, only 2 of us got the $30,000.
I remember the
I don't know how many
conversation.
applicants, but it was them and me. We did the proposal, like our contractor did the proposal of the line items.
But what document guided your application? What document? You went by
But that was the
stipulations.
criteria, and I most likely, I mean, that was way back when, before, the application, but I'm 100% I have all that.
So what I'm hearing is that you said that this is the wrong document to record
Like,
a lien, but you haven't stated that the lien should have never been recorded. You understood that there should be a lien, that
Okay.
there was going to be a lien, but you didn't get
Well-
the full 30, you got 27.
Which has nothing to do with the lien itself, that has everything to do with one of the line items, which was the sign, which was
Right.
2 pieces of plastic. That was missing. And
Right.
I gave I received a global warning regarding that. I didn't have the name. I didn't want to do the job twice. We're talking about $200 items. And then the case was closed on me immediately by voting at the same time on the chambers. It was kept open for God knows, maybe another whole year.
So now we're talking something, all right.
But I'm just saying, but this lien is just a silly piece of instrument that is so incorrect that it doesn't serve anything. It should have never happened. It's the wrong kind of paperwork to begin with.
But you did understand that there was a lien.
It wasn't a stipulation. It just kind of got slapped on it because if I know exactly, Barudi's mom, I forgot her name, one of our members, she came up with the idea. Miss Clarice kind of nodded on that, and it was kind of voted on last second. It was slapped on. The whole idea was a last second idea. It was just slapped on.
When any municipality gives a person money, give you a mortgage, they'll place the lien
Not a
on your
mortgage,
property.
a covenant.
So, either the covenant, if you take the money, you know that property gonna be lien on it. Because what we don't wanna do, we give you $30,000, you fix up that building, and you flip it and sell it. Who
Yeah.
loses?
I agree.
You couldn't sell that building without that lien on it.
Right.
We lose money because you fixed that building. We brought it up to par to get it sold.
I understand
So
and I agree
the
100%.
thing was, you get the money, you fix it up, you put a business in it. You didn't meet the criteria of that process. It's still not a business in that building that we gave you money on.
Because that lien doesn't
That
prevent
lien don't
me
have,
to
the
lease it
lien
out.
protects the money of the agency.
We'll revisit.
But,
Yeah.
hold on, the lien protects the
Right.
money on the agency.
Yes, but it's not my job
No.
to have the correct documents
If you
drawn
take the
out.
money, we got to put the lien on the property. Point blank simple. You
Yeah.
take whatever. If the agency protect itself with the funds.
Right.
So if you use the money, you know it's gonna be a lien on that property.
Okay.
So you won't.
I
flip
never
that property.
objected to that.
Right, but you know it's gonna be a lien on that property, you took the money. That's in the process.
Okay.
That's on any process any company do.
All right.
They give you
Yeah.
money.
That,
I never argued
all right,
that.
Right, so
thank you.
my thing is that, go ahead.
But what is that particular document doing on my
Right.
property? That's what I'm
Well-
questioning. It's unlawful,
Okay,
it's the
thank you,
incorrect
Mr. Ryan.
document, it should be
Director.
audited, and it needs to be off. That's what
Director
I'm saying.
Davis.
So my like I say, Attorney Jackson, if this is a deferred payment loan lien, most loan liens and all that kind of stuff, wouldn't it been notarized?
There's a whole process in order to get a loan lien, and in particular, there has to be an actual loan document,
Right.
which I did not see there.
That was the
All right,
one, it was not.
we have to go on, it's
Yeah.
6:30. The discussion of the bylaws and the discussion of 225 West
Can
Kennedy.
you table that to the next meeting, please?
It's just discussion.
Yeah, so we can, go ahead and close out on time for this meeting.
Table
Everyone's
that to the
okay?
next
One last
meeting.
thing before you close out, Chair. Going forward, on agendas, there still should be a place for directors to give reports and all that and be able to address things. That was not there. And I would like to, since Ms. Ward did put something on record, I want to just give her a food for thought. Florida Statute 215.425-4A1 states that most that someone can receive in severance for a contract of 20 weeks. That contract was paid out over 20 weeks, so that's why I made the contract invalid. So I give you that Florida statute. Okay?
All right, so with items 7 and 8 moving to the next agenda, I move that we adjourn.
So moved.
It is 6:28. It's been moved, second. It's been moved, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? And I'm an aye. All right, we adjourn. We will reconvene in about 5 minutes to give time to set up for the workshop.